Hi, I'm Paul Rigby, co-author of the B-Book and the B-Book version 2.0. I'm often asked by customers, how do we exceed our expectations? How do we overachieve our targets? How do we bring home the honey? Well, the answer is pretty simple, really, is become an upstream leader. What do I mean by this? Put the fires out before they occur. Think ahead, think upstream. Stop firefighting and start upstreaming. Now, we've had this issue of COVID-19 for quite a while. Most countries have had it since March 2020. What we've got to do is stop using COVID as an excuse. We've got to learn to work within the boundaries. We've got to be resilient. We've got to be entrepreneurial in our thinking. We've got to act. Action changes things. Now, a lot of people have put a lot of work in the last couple of months. And I'd say, as a leader, what you need to do is be a little bit more empathetic. Everybody's got different issues with COVID, from loneliness to whatever the reason is. And we all handle these things differently. So please be empathetic. That's how you engage people. That's how you get people to go above and beyond. And never forget this. Employees don't leave bad jobs. They leave bad bosses. So the thing that you've got to do is give people space. But that doesn't mean you can tolerate mediocrity. What I'm saying here is be fair, but be firm. There's a fine line, and I get that. But you've got to try and be fair and firm. And that's what makes a great leader. And hold on to your employees. We call it employees with shining eyes. Hold on to them, because these are the outliers that are the performers. So make sure you don't lose those people, because if you lose those, then what are you left with? I don't believe in the work-life balance statement. I like to say everyone has a work-life equation. You know, we are all unique. We all have different issues. We come from different cultures. We're different sexes. We have different religions. So we're different ages. So what I say is we're in the business of people. We are in the people business. And if you do not understand people, you do not understand business. So treat your employees as individuals and treat them with respect. If you do that, they will do amazing things. And I always like to say, become a learning maniac. When people are learning, both on the job and informal learning, then they are more engaged. So I think it was last week I read a quote. 4 years, it was in Harvard Business Review, and it said, in 4 years, you'll have to relearn 30% of your job. That's quite a powerful statement. So I'll just leave you the thought: learn, unlearn, relearn. And what you got to do is you got to get as many people to the front of the boat as possible. You know, look at who are your paddlers, who are your passengers, and who's trying to sink your boat. You've got to engage them. Try and get as many people to the front of the boat as possible through whatever method. And we discussed that in Be Engaged workshop. I always like to say, be tough on the issue, be tender on the heart. And for those who refuse to change, the message is clear. I'm talking about the people where you've put in as much effort as you can, but they just refuse to move. In the book, the character is called Legbottom. He's got 20 years experience, 1 year, 20 times. And he just refuses to have an open mind and look at new ideas. So these people, we've got to give them what I call a managed exit. You get rid of them in the correct way, of course. You do it legally and legitimately, and you do it with a bit of empathy as well. What you got to do is you got to make the big decisions. That's why you get paid the big bucks. And if you don't, then what? You know, having different rules for different people is a major disengagement activity. You saw the previous slide where 20% of the people are at the front of the boat. These are the 20% of the people giving you 80% of the output. We want to try and get 40% of the people giving us 160% of the output. So we need to think seriously about how we treat everybody and whether we tolerate bad behavior, mediocrity, etc. Think about that. If you don't tolerate bad behavior and mediocrity, you have a higher chance of achieving your results. I often say to people, when is a good time to change? You know, try these. No thanks. We're busy. We don't see the trees for the forest, as they say in English. Yeah? Change is hard. Implementing the strategies in the next financial year, it's going to be tough. How do you do this? Well, you've got to win over the hearts and the minds of employees. Ensure people see it and feel it. If they cannot see it and they cannot feel it, you will probably not achieve the changes that you want. You won't reach your expectations. So when is a good time to change? Now. It's always a good time to change. But sometimes we don't see why. You've got to allow people to see that the future is better than the present. And the way you do this is to stop firefighting and start upstreaming as a leader. And some people will know this story about Buzz the Bee walking along the beach. A whole lot of starfish had been washed up on the beach, and he was throwing them into the sea one at a time. And an old man was walking along on his daily walk, and he said to Buzz, "Hey, what are you doing?" Of course, Buzz said, "I'm throwing these into the sea." He says, "But it won't make a difference." And as Buzz threw the next one into the sea, he said, "It'll make a difference to this one." And he picked up another one, and he said, "It'll make a difference to this one." And that's really the whole thing about being a great leader, is helping people see that they can all make a difference. I like to say we are all leaders of change. We do it in what I call the inch pebbles versus the milestones, one small step at a time. We can't change the whole world today. We can't change the whole business today. But if we start doing it in small inch pebbles, by the end of the year, imagine what we could achieve. So please remember the starfish story. Now, there'll always be those that have hundreds of excuses as to why they cannot or do not want to change. In the B book, we call the character leg bottom. I like to call them neg ferrets. Yeah, the negative people, they just have hundreds and hundreds of excuses. What you got to do to achieve your objective next year is you've got to get as many people on board as possible. I like to say change is a team sport. So too is leadership. You cannot do it alone. You've got to work as a team to achieve it. And if you do that and everybody's clear about their objectives and they buy into the objectives and they can see and feel their objectives, you have a higher chance of achieving your objectives. But it won't be easy. It's like pushing water uphill with a fork. You know, sometimes it just feels like you're doing this all the time. I get that. It's tough. You know, if change was easy, everybody would be changing, right? And anytime you try something new, it's going to take extra energy. So look to your colleagues for support. Collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. Remember this: information is not transformation, and you cannot deliver the objectives on your own. You need to disseminate the information, because information is power, but holding the information is not power. Disseminating the information is power. This is what great leaders do. And you need to keep the urgency up. You need to make sure that urgency is the foundation of everything you're doing, because without urgency, you're going to struggle. And you need to overcome what I call paradigm paralysis, like lead bottom. You can't see beyond the forest. Yeah. So you need to help push this water uphill, and you cannot do it alone. You need to work across cultures, across departments, across sites, across offices, across countries. That is how you will achieve your objectives. And of course, everybody talks about the silos. We need to break down the silos. Silos are not good for business. They are obstacles that are in the way of progress. Break them down as soon as possible. Do not tolerate mediocrity. Do not tolerate bad behavior. What the silos do is they stop the information flow and they disengage employees and they reduce productivity. What you also need to do is have a great story. All leaders have a great story. In this case, the elephant story, you got the 5 bees and they're blindfolded. Now, each bee will go back to the hive with a different story about the same thing, but no one will give a story about the elephant. One will tell a story about the tusk, for example, one about the ear, one about the tail, etc., one about the trunk, one about the foot. What you need to do is break down the silos so that each team, they can tell a story about the elephant and they are all coming from the same place. Keep it simple, make it crystal clear, and make sure everybody's collaborating so they all have a similar, if not the same, story. Now, you need to understand where you're heading. As I said earlier, if you can't see the future is better than the present, why will you change? Why will you put in the effort? So you've got to encourage more and more collaboration. Tell stories about your strategy. Embrace what we call the elephant, the rider, and the path. The elephant represents emotion, the rider, the rational, and the direction is obviously where we're going. And the path are the obstacles in the way of progress. As a leader, you've got to be more empathetic. We've discussed that. So you need to talk from the heart. You need to buy people's heart, probably more than the head. But as a good leader, you get agreement from the heart and the head. And then you need to show them the direction, show them where we're going, and your job really is what I call the CHRO, the Chief Hurdle Removal Officer. You've got to remove the obstacles that are in the way of progress. And you've got to be honest with people. Do not sugarcoat bad news when communicating to employees. Bring reality into the conversation, into your stories as soon as possible. And I like to say, tell the terrible truth more often, but do so respectfully. And you've got to see the big picture, and everybody should try and see the big picture. This is not just the senior leadership team, everybody, because if everybody can see the big picture, they will know how their job fits into that big picture, which part of the puzzle it forms. So please make sure you're crystal clear in that. So you got to bring the money, bring home the honey. What you got to do is you got to work as a team. And I like a definition I read from the Harvard Business Review recently. A team is a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, who are committed to a set of performance goals and an approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. Mutually accountable. I repeat that. Everybody's got to be accountable with 100% responsibility. So to create an environment where we improve what we call improving the social script, the culture, where people want to win, they want to contribute, they don't leave their hearts and minds at the door. We need to stop firefighting and become upstream leaders. Try and solve the problems before they occur, so to speak. And remember this, we are all leaders of change, okay? And this is one of my favorite quotes. Coming second means you're the first loser. And this is why it is important. This is why it's important to implement what we call agility. And it's used quite liberally in the business world. But that's why it's important to have speed and agility. Otherwise, you come second. And if not, what happens? You might get eaten by your opposition. You know, we need to be more agile. Agility is to quickly reconfigure strategy, structure, processes, people, and technology towards adding value. And if anybody says that we're moving fast enough in business, I'd like to know who they are. Because as far as I'm concerned, and you may agree or disagree with me, but no one is moving fast enough. Look at how rapidly things are moving, especially like in the year 2020. Look at how people have changed their business and modified. So how do we get our results? Well, we've got to move at the speed of business. We've got to stop tolerating mediocrity everywhere. We've got to realize that today's best may not meet tomorrow's challenges. We need to keep up the urgency. We've got to act like an upstream leader. We've got to communicate, collaborate. We've got to disentangle the organization, so to speak. We've got to break down the silos. And we've got to encourage our teams to have more people with shining eyes, people who want to be here, who want to make a difference. And if we could do some of those things, I think we'll have a high chance of obtaining our results. But please don't forget to have a bit of fun along the way. Fun is good. Now, the last thing I'd like to approach, almost closing here, is to deal with uncertainty. In this uncertain world, you must become comfortable with uncertainty. That is why leaders are employed. We are employed as leaders to deal with uncertainty, but we must not lose focus. Uncertainty is why we're here. So please make sure you have a plan B. And remember, you'll also need a plan C and a plan D, because often things don't go according to plan B. And we need to take time to celebrate. You know, we always work for a better tomorrow. But when tomorrow comes, instead of enjoying, we think again of a better tomorrow. Take some time to appreciate today, to celebrate the short-term wins. Plan to win and plan to celebrate the wins. This is important. The inch pebbles versus the milestones. And don't forget, small wins are the oxygen for change. Small wins are the oxygen for success. We achieve success one step at a time, starting now. So thank you for listening. I'll leave you with these 3 great quotes. All progress takes place outside the comfort zone. In order to succeed, we must first believe that we can. The way to get started is to quit talking and start doing. Remember, act. Action changes things. I wish you every success in turning your nectar into honey. Nectar makes honey. Honey makes money. Thank you. I wish you success in achieving your targets. I wish you even more success in overachieving your targets. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much.